I caught sight of my daughter-in-law, Clara, tossing my granddaughter Sophie's favorite baby blanket into the trash. For a moment I froze, thinking my old eyes had deceived me. But when she slammed the dumpster lid shut and walked back inside without a glance, something inside me twisted. That blanket wasn't just any piece of cloth. I had knitted it myself, stitch by stitch, with every ounce of love I had left for my family. Without thinking, I rushed toward the dumpster, my heart pounding, and fished it out before it disappeared beneath the garbage. I never thought I'd be brave enough to tell this, but maybe someone out there needs to hear it. Before continuing, please subscribe and tell me where you're watching this story from, because what I'm about to tell you is still unbelievable. I held the blanket against my chest, feeling the faint scent of Sophie's baby shampoo still clinging to it. My hands trembled as I brushed away the dirt, wondering why Clara would throw it away. Memories flooded back. My son Ethan holding Sophie in that very blanket, smiling like the proudest father alive. That image used to give me peace, but now it brought an ache that reached straight into my bones. At home, I spread the blanket over my bed. The mint green yarn had dulled with time, but every loop and stitch carried a piece of my heart. Then, as I ran my fingers over the fabric, I felt something strange. A hard bump hidden beneath the soft threads. My breath hitched. It wasn't part of the stitching. It felt foreign. Deliberate curiosity replaced my confusion. I fetched my sewing scissors, the same pair I'd used years ago to make this blanket. Carefully, I snipped at the seam. Each cut echoed in the silence like a whisper I wasn't supposed to hear. When the last thread gave way, I slid my fingers inside the fabric. Something cold and metallic brushed my skin. It was a cell phone. Small, black, and eerily silent. My pulse quickened. Why would Clara hide a phone in a baby blanket? Why would she throw it away now, after all these years? I stared at the lifeless screen, unsure if I should even turn it on. But curiosity, no, something stronger, told me I had to know. I rummaged through my drawers until I found an old charger that might fit. My fingers shook as I plugged it in. Seconds dragged by like hours until the screen flickered and came to life. There was no password, no lock. It opened straight to the home screen. My throat went dry. Whoever had hidden this phone didn't think anyone else would ever see it. I tapped on the gallery. Rows of photos appeared. Dozens of them. The first image froze me where I sat. Clara, smiling, radiant, sitting in a fancy restaurant. But she wasn't alone. A man sat beside her, his arm draped around her shoulders, his lips pressed against her cheek. And the date stamped on the corner? 4 years ago, when Ethan was still alive. The phone slipped from my hand, my vision blurred with tears. My son had loved this woman more than anything, and she had betrayed him. I swiped through more photos. Clara and the same man on the beach, in hotel rooms, kissing in cars. Every photo told the same cruel truth. My son had been living a lie. But when I opened the messages, my blood ran cold. The name on top of the chat read simply, H. Their words started romantic, secret meetups, declarations of love. But then the tone shifted. He'll never let me go. Clara had written. He's too perfect, too controlling. I can't stand pretending anymore. There has to be another way. I need him to disappear. I dropped the phone. The air seemed to vanish from the room. My body went numb, my mind spinning. Disappear? No, she couldn't have meant, but deep down I knew. Something inside me whispered the truth I didn't want to hear. What I found inside that blanket wasn't just a secret. It was the beginning of a nightmare. And as I scrolled further through that phone, I realized Clara's betrayal went far beyond infidelity. It reached straight into the heart of my son's death. I sat frozen, the phone lying on the bed like a forbidden object. Its black screen staring back at me as if it knew the chaos it had just unleashed. My heart refused to calm down. Every word I had read echoed in my mind. I need him to disappear. Could she really have meant Ethan? My Ethan? My gentle, selfless son who spent his life healing others? The thought alone made me sick. But something in those words, The coldness, the finality, told me this was no passing thought. It was a plan. I picked the phone back up, my hands trembling. I needed to know more. Maybe I was misunderstanding. Maybe it wasn't about Ethan. But deep inside, I already knew. I scrolled through the rest of the messages. The man, the one saved as H, had replied to her words with hesitation. "Don't say that, Clara. You're upset. You'll regret it." But Clara didn't stop. "I can't live like this anymore. He stands in the way of everything. He needs to be gone." My chest tightened. I could barely breathe. The next few messages were even darker. "I talked to someone," she wrote. "Someone who can help. Everything will look natural." Those words made my stomach twist. Look natural. What kind of person plans something like that? Calmly, casually, as if it were nothing more than rearranging furniture. I opened the Notes app, praying there was nothing there. But there was one entry, only one, dated 2 days before Ethan's death. Tuesday, 3 p.m. he'll be alone. Everything has to look natural. No one can suspect. I felt the air leave my lungs. She planned it. Clara didn't just betray Ethan. She killed him. My body went cold. I sat in the silence of my bedroom, the dim lamplight flickering, as if the air itself had grown heavy with her secret. My son's death had always felt wrong to me. Clara's story about him falling down the stairs never made sense. He was strong, careful. Not the kind of man to trip like that. But I had believed her, because I wanted to. Because the truth would have been too unbearable. Now, staring at that phone, I knew what really happened. Ethan didn't fall. He was pushed. I couldn't sleep that night. I sat on the edge of my bed, the phone still clutched in my hands, replaying every moment from that horrible day. Clara's tears at the hospital, her trembling voice, her cold embrace. None of it had been grief. It had been performance, a masterpiece of deceit. By sunrise, my pillow was soaked with tears. I had lost my husband years ago, and now I realized I had lost my son not to fate, but to cruelty, to the woman he trusted most. But grief soon turned into something else. Resolve. I wasn't going to let Clara get away with this. I needed help. Someone who would believe me. Someone who wouldn't think I had gone mad. My mind went straight to Martha, my next-door neighbor and oldest friend. She had stood by me through every hardship, through my husband's death, through Ethan's funeral. It was 6 a.m. when I dialed her number. "Lena, are you all right?" she asked, her voice still heavy with sleep. "No," I whispered. "Please come over. I found something terrible." There was silence for a moment. Then the sound of her voice sharpened. "I'm on my way." 15 minutes later, she was at my door, wearing a cardigan over her nightdress, her gray hair pulled into a messy bun. One look at my face and she didn't ask any more questions. She followed me straight into the bedroom. The blanket still lay on the bed. The phone was beside it, the screen glowing faintly. I told her everything. How I saw Clara throw it away. How I'd found the phone sewn inside. What I'd read. Martha didn't interrupt once. She listened, her eyes widening with every word. When I finished, she reached for the phone. Her fingers trembled as she scrolled through the messages. Then she looked at me, pale, stunned. "My God, Lena," she whispered. "This isn't just betrayal. This is murder." I nodded slowly. "I know." But I didn't realize then, that phone was only the beginning. What Martha and I were about to uncover next would destroy everything I thought I knew about my family, and about the woman who had fooled us all. Martha sat beside me, the phone still in her hands, her face pale under the morning light filtering through the curtains. Neither of us spoke for a while. The only sound in the room was the faint hum of the charger plugged into the wall, and my own heartbeat, loud and uneven. Finally, she broke the silence. "Lena, this is serious. You can't keep this to yourself." I swallowed hard. "I know, but who would believe me? The police closed Ethan's case years ago. They called it an accident." Martha leaned forward, her voice steady. Then we find something they can't ignore. Her words lit a spark inside me. She was right. The phone alone was shocking. But it wasn't enough. Clara could claim it was fake, planted, anything. I needed more proof. Something that connected her lies directly to Ethan's death. Martha suggested starting with Clara's social media. If she was seeing that man, she said, there has to be a trace, a photo, a comment, something. I fetched my old laptop and opened Clara's profile. Her page was filled with carefully staged photos. Charity dinners, family trips, hospital events. Her life looked perfect, polished, spotless. But perfection is often a mask. We scrolled through her friends list, searching for anyone whose name started with an H. There were a few. Hugh Morgan, Henry Lewis, Harold Price. My stomach tightened when I opened Hugh's profile. His face was unmistakable. The same man from the photos on the hidden phone. There he is, I whispered. Martha leaned closer. That's him? I nodded, feeling the world tilt a little. The man she risked everything for. Hugh Morgan's profile said he worked for a construction company across town. There were no recent photos with Clara. None at all. But going back 4 years, the same time frame as the photos on the phone, there were several posts tagged at the same locations Clara had shared. Restaurants, beaches, hotels. They hid it well, Martha muttered. But they slipped up. My pulse raced as a plan formed in my mind. We need to know more about him. If he was part of this, he might have left something behind. Messages, payments, anything. Martha frowned. And how do we find that? I hesitated. What I was thinking wasn't exactly legal. If I could somehow access her computer, maybe there's something there. Martha's eyes widened. You mean, go into her house? I know it sounds insane, but Clara has to have more evidence hidden somewhere. The phone couldn't be the only thing. For a long time, Martha didn't say anything. Then she sighed. If you're really going to do this, you shouldn't go alone. A chill ran through me. She was right, but I couldn't risk her getting involved. No, I said firmly. You'll wait in the car. I'll find a reason to visit her. Something to distract her. You can come in later, say you forgot something. Just look around. Martha stared at me for a few seconds, then nodded slowly. All right, but we do this together. If something goes wrong, I'm right there. That afternoon, I sat on my sofa with the phone in my hand, drafting a message to Clara. My fingers hovered over the keyboard for a long time. I had to sound calm, normal, like the loving mother-in-law she believed I still was. Hi, Clara. I know you're busy, but I miss seeing Sophie. Could I stop by this afternoon for a short visit? I hit send and waited. Every second dragged like an eternity. Finally, my phone buzzed. Today's not great. Sophie's a little cranky. Maybe another day. The same excuse always. My heart pounded. This time, I wasn't backing down. Please, Clara. Just for a few minutes. I have something for her. I promise I won't stay long. A long pause followed. Then her reply came. Fine, but only half an hour. I have things to do. I exhaled slowly. That was all I needed. I called Martha immediately. She agreed. 3 o'clock. Be ready. As I ended the call, a thought struck me. A small, sharp instinct whispering from deep inside. If Clara had really planned Ethan's death, if she was capable of hiding a phone in a blanket and discarding it years later, what else was she capable of hiding? Or worse, what else was she capable of doing if she suspected I knew the truth? I didn't realize it then, but by stepping into Clara's house that afternoon, I wasn't just searching for evidence. I was walking straight into the lion's den. At exactly 3 o'clock, I parked across the street from Clara's house. The sky hung low, gray and heavy, as if it sensed what I was about to do. My palms were slick with sweat, though the air was cold. I could see the front window glowing faintly. Warm light, perfect curtains. A house that looked too peaceful for the truth it held inside. Martha sat beside me in the passenger seat. her face tense. "Are you sure about this?" She whispered. "No," I admitted, "but I have to know." I looked at Clara's door, the same door I had once walked through with gifts, with love, with trust. Now all I felt was dread. I took a deep breath and stepped out of the car. "Wait for my signal," I told Martha. "Give me a few minutes." She nodded, clutching her small purse, her knuckles white. The walkway up to the house felt longer than I remembered. Every step echoed like a warning. When I reached the porch, I hesitated, forcing myself to knock. It took only a few seconds before I heard her footsteps. The door opened and there she was, Clara, looking as flawless as ever. Her dark hair was perfectly brushed, her blouse tucked neatly into tailored pants. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Lena," she said flatly. "Come in." The smell of lavender filled the air. Everything was spotless, the furniture polished, the floors gleaming. It was the same house where Ethan had supposedly fallen down the stairs. Now those stairs stood silent, gleaming in the light, steep, narrow, innocent-looking. I couldn't stop staring at them. Clara's voice cut through my thoughts. "Would you like some tea?" "No, thank you," I said softly. "I just wanted to see Sophie." She hesitated, then nodded and went upstairs. My eyes followed her every step until she disappeared around the landing. Those were the last steps Ethan had ever taken. While she was gone, I took in the room. Everything was arranged perfectly, almost too perfectly. Every frame aligned, every surface immaculate. Only someone with something to hide would need this much control. Moments later, Clara came down carrying Sophie, who ran straight into my arms with a joyful little laugh. "Grandma!" she squealed. My throat tightened. I hugged her, inhaling the scent of baby shampoo and innocence. "I missed you, my love," I whispered. Clara stood by the window, her phone in hand, tapping the screen nervously. Her movements were sharp, restless. I could feel her tension from across the room. She wasn't acting like someone casually hosting her mother-in-law. She was waiting for something, or someone. It was time. I took out my own phone and typed a quick message to Martha. "Come now." A few minutes later, the doorbell rang. Clara turned sharply. "Are you expecting someone?" she asked, narrowing her eyes. I forced a calm smile. "No, not at all." Clara frowned and went to the door. When she opened it, Martha stood there holding her purse. "Oh, hello," Martha said pleasantly. "Sorry to interrupt. I came with Lena but left my bag in the car. Mind if I use your restroom while I'm here?" Clara hesitated, her gaze flicking between us. Then she sighed. "Sure. Down the hall. First door on the left." Martha gave me a subtle look as she disappeared down the hallway. That was the signal. I needed to keep Clara distracted. I smiled and sat back down with Sophie on my lap. "You know," I said lightly, "I've been knitting again. I was thinking of making Sophie a new blanket, but nothing will ever be like the mint green one." Clara froze. For a split second, I saw something flicker across her face. Panic, before she quickly masked it. "The old blanket?" she said. "Yes, it's around here somewhere." "In the washing machine, maybe?" I asked, pretending to sound casual. Her lips tightened. "Yes, it got dirty." I nodded slowly, pretending to believe her. "Ethan always said that blanket had something magical about it. He used to say Sophie slept better when she was wrapped in it." Clara's eyes hardened. "Ethan said a lot of things," she muttered under her breath. A chill ran down my spine. Her voice was different, low, sharp, cold. Before I could reply, Martha reappeared. Her face was calm, but her eyes told me everything. She had found something. "Well," she said cheerfully, "thank you for letting me use your bathroom." I stood, holding Sophie close. "We'll get going. Thank you for letting me visit." Clara followed us to the door, her eyes sharp as knives. As soon as we stepped outside, she shut the door with a force that made the windows rattle. Martha and I walked silently to the car. Only when the house was out of sight did she speak. "Lena," she whispered, pulling a large manila envelope from her purse. "You need to see this." My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside were documents, Ethan's life insurance papers, the beneficiary, Clara Morgan, and attached bank statements. Massive transfers. One for $200,000 to a name I instantly recognized. Hugh Morgan. My heart stopped. Clara hadn't just killed for love. She had killed for money. But the next paper in that envelope would reveal something far darker than greed. Something that would change everything I thought I knew about Sophie. The car rocked slightly in the wind as Martha and I sat in stunned silence, the envelope open between us. The papers inside were crisp, official, cold proof of something unforgivable. I ran my trembling fingers over Ethan's name printed at the top of the insurance document, my eyes blurring with tears. $500,000, I whispered. She collected it all, 3 months after he died. Martha nodded grimly. And look at this, she said, pulling out the bank transfer slip. $200,000 wired to Hugh Morgan. That's her lover, the same man from the photos. The realization hit me like a wave of nausea. Clara hadn't just betrayed my son emotionally. She had conspired with another man to profit from his death. Every act of affection, every tear she'd shed at the funeral. It had all been part of a performance, a calculated lie. But something else caught my eye. Near the bottom of the envelope was another paper. A birth certificate. My fingers froze as I unfolded it. It was for Sophie, but something was horribly wrong. The mother's name wasn't Clara Morgan. It said Lydia Torres. I blinked, confused. "Who is Lydia Torres?" I murmured. Martha leaned closer. "Maybe it's a mistake." But I knew better. The paper was real, dated, signed and sealed. The dates didn't even match what Clara had told us. According to this certificate, Sophie had been born 2 months earlier than Clara's supposed delivery date. "She faked a pregnancy," I whispered, my voice barely audible. "She wasn't Sophie's mother." Martha stared at me, horrified. "Then where did the baby come from?" I shook my head slowly. "I don't know. But if she lied about being pregnant, maybe she stole her." The words felt unreal, heavy in my mouth. I had spent years believing Sophie was Ethan's biological child, his living legacy. But if this certificate was true, everything about her birth had been a lie. Martha opened her phone. "Let's look up this Lydia Torres. Maybe she's still alive. Maybe she's Sophie's real mother." We searched her name together, scrolling through endless results until one article made my breath catch. It was from 4 years ago in a local newspaper. The headline read, "Young Mother Missing. Family Begs for Help Finding Lydia Torres." There was a picture of a smiling young woman, no older than 23. Long brown hair, soft eyes. She looked kind, vulnerable. The article said Lydia had vanished shortly after giving birth to her daughter. Martha's voice trembled. "It says here she disappeared without a trace, left behind her baby." "Or maybe," I said quietly, "the baby was taken." We read further, but the story ended abruptly. No updates, no arrests, no body found. Lydia had simply vanished. I sat back, my mind spinning. Could Clara have met her somehow? Taken her child? Killed her? The thought was too monstrous to process, yet it made sense in the most horrifying way. I looked at the mint green blanket folded in the back seat, the same one I had rescued from the trash. A shiver ran through me. That blanket had hidden more than just a phone. It had hidden the truth about a stolen life. Martha touched my arm gently. "Lena, this is bigger than you or me. We need to go to the police." I wanted to agree, but fear held me back. And tell them what? That I found a phone in a blanket I took from her trash? That I broke into her house and found documents? They'll think I've lost my mind. Then what are you going to do? "I need proof. Real proof." I clenched my fists. "If Lydia is dead, there must be a record. Something official." I opened my laptop right there in the car, my fingers shaking as I searched again. This time I filtered for recent news. Minutes passed. Then, there it was. An article dated 6 months ago. Remains of missing woman identified as Lydia Torres. The words blurred as I read them. They found her, I whispered. Her body was discovered in an abandoned lot outside the city. Cause of death, head trauma. Martha's hand flew to her mouth. The same as Ethan. We sat in silence, the truth crashing down around us. Clara hadn't just taken a life for money. She had taken another for a child. She killed Lydia, I said numbly. She killed that poor girl to steal her baby. And then she killed Ethan for the insurance money. The world outside the car seemed to blur. My reflection in the window didn't even look like me anymore. I had spent years mourning a son who died in an accident. Loving a grandchild I thought was mine. Trusting a woman who had built her life on blood and lies. Martha's voice broke through my thoughts. We have to act, Lena. If she's capable of that, who knows what she'll do next? I looked down at the phone still glowing faintly in my lap. The phone that had started it all. You're right, I said quietly. But if we go to the police, we'll need every piece of evidence we can get. Neither of us knew then that Clara was already one step ahead, and that before the night was over, she'd make her first move to silence me for good. That night I couldn't sleep. Every creak in the house sounded louder. Every gust of wind through the window felt like a warning. I sat in my armchair, the dim lamp casting long shadows across the living room. In front of me, the mint green blanket lay folded neatly on the coffee table. Once it had brought comfort. Now, it was a symbol of everything broken. Lies, betrayal, death. I replayed the day's discoveries in my mind over and over. The insurance money, the birth certificate, the missing mother. Clara's web of deceit ran deeper than anything I could have imagined. My son had died thinking he had a family, but it was all a cruel illusion. Around midnight, my phone buzzed. The sudden vibration made me jump. My heart raced when I saw the message. Clara, we need to talk. Now. I stared at the screen, my pulse pounding in my ears. She knew. Somehow she knew I had been inside her house. Maybe she saw Martha take the envelope. Maybe she noticed something missing. Another message came seconds later. Don't ignore me, Lena. I know what you did. My breath hitched. The room felt smaller, the air thinner. I wanted to call Martha, but fear gripped me. What if Clara was outside right now, watching? I stood and peeked through the curtains. The street was quiet, except for a dark SUV parked across the road. Its engine was off, but I could see the faint glow of someone inside. That's when the phone buzzed again. I'm outside. We can settle this face to face. My knees nearly gave out. I backed away from the window, my body trembling. God, no, I whispered to myself. I grabbed the old landline and dialed Martha's number. She picked up after one ring. Martha, she's here, I whispered frantically. Outside my house. Lock the doors, she said immediately. I'm calling the police. Don't open that door, Lena, do you hear me? I nodded even though she couldn't see me. Just hurry. I turned the locks on every door and window, my hands shaking. The house felt like a cage. I could feel Clara's presence even without seeing her. The same cold, calculating energy that once fooled us all. Suddenly, a loud bang echoed through the front porch. I jumped, my heart racing. Another bang followed, then her voice. Lena, she shouted, her tone sharp and furious. You've been snooping through my things. You don't know what you're getting yourself into! Her voice sent a shiver down my spine. It wasn't the smooth, polite voice she used in public. It was raw, venomous. Go away, Clara, I yelled from behind the locked door. The police are on their way. For a few seconds there was silence. Then a low laugh. Cold, mocking. You really think they'll believe you? You're just an old woman who can't let go of the past. Tears welled up in my eyes, but I held my ground. I know what you did, I said, my voice breaking. I found the phone. The messages. Lydia Torres. Everything. Another silence. This time longer. Then her tone changed. You should have stopped when I warned you, she said softly. You have no idea what's coming." The sound of footsteps retreated down the porch, then the low hum of an engine starting. I peeked through the curtain just in time to see the SUV pull away into the darkness. My hands were still shaking when Martha arrived 15 minutes later with 2 police officers. They took my statement, but without hard proof of threat or violence, there wasn't much they could do. One officer suggested installing cameras and promised extra patrols in the area. After they left, Martha stayed. She brewed tea for us, though neither of us drank it. My nerves were too frayed to taste anything. "She knows everything," I whispered. "We have to move faster. If she's desperate, she could do anything." Martha nodded grimly. "Then tomorrow we find out what's left. We'll take everything we've discovered to the authorities. No more waiting." I looked toward the window again. The street was empty now. But something told me this wasn't over. Clara had the money, the motive, and now she had fear on her side. Mine. Before Martha left, she squeezed my hand. "You're not alone, Lena. Whatever happens next, we face it together." I tried to believe her, but that night, as I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, a sound jolted me awake. A soft click, the faint creak of the back door. Someone was inside the house, and when I crept toward the kitchen with trembling hands, praying it was just my imagination, I saw the impossible. Clara's reflection staring back at me from the dark window, smiling. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. The kitchen was cloaked in shadows, only faintly lit by the glow of the street lamp seeping through the curtains. My reflection trembled on the window pane, but behind it another face lingered. Clara's? Her cold smile sent a jolt of terror straight through my chest. I froze, my breath shallow, every instinct screaming to run. But before I could move, the reflection vanished. I turned quickly, clutching the edge of the counter, my heart hammering so loudly I could barely hear. "Clara?" I whispered into the darkness. No answer, just the faint ticking of the kitchen clock. I forced myself to switch on the light. The kitchen flooded with brightness, but it offered no comfort. The back door was slightly ajar. Its lock snapped clean, the latch bent. My legs almost gave out. She had been inside. I reached for my phone, my fingers trembling so violently I could barely dial. Martha answered on the second ring. "Martha, it's her," I whispered. She broke in. "The back door. Get out of the house," she cut in. "Now! I'm calling the police again. Don't try to confront her, Lena." I grabbed my coat and the mint green blanket from the couch. I didn't even know why. Maybe because it was the only piece of my son I had left. As I moved toward the front door, I heard something. A faint creak from the hallway behind me. She was still here. I turned slowly, my throat dry. The house seemed to pulse with silence. Then came another sound. Soft footsteps. Deliberate. Measured. "Coming closer, Clara," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "You don't have to do this." Her voice drifted from the shadows, calm and chilling. "Oh, but I do, Lena. You shouldn't have gone digging. You never could leave well enough alone." I backed away toward the front door, my hand fumbling for the lock. My heartbeat roared in my ears. "The police are on their way," I said. "It's over." She stepped out from the dark, and for the first time I saw what pure hatred looked like. Her eyes were wild, unrecognizable. "It's over when I say it's over." Before I could react, she lunged. I stumbled backward, grabbing the nearest thing I could, a lamp, and swung. It crashed to the floor, shattering, sparks flying. Clara cursed and ducked, then bolted toward the back door. I didn't chase her. I ran straight outside into the cold night air just as the distant wail of sirens pierced the silence. The neighbors' lights flicked on one by one, curious faces appearing at windows. By the time the police arrived, Clara was gone. They searched the area but found nothing. Just the broken back door, muddy footprints, and my shattered lamp. The officers were kind but skeptical. "It's possible she came to threaten you," one said, taking notes. But without direct evidence or a witness, we can't do much more right now. We'll increase patrols." When they left, Martha came rushing in, wrapping her arms around me. "You're lucky, Lena. She could have—" She stopped herself, her voice trembling. "I know," I said quietly. "But she's not done. Not yet." The next morning, I found an envelope slipped under my door. My stomach dropped as I picked it up. There was no name, no address, just my name, scrawled in thick black ink. Inside was a single photo. It was of Sophie, sitting in her little pink pajamas, smiling at the camera. But the photo wasn't old. It was taken the night before. The timestamp proved it. My hands shook so violently that the picture fluttered from my grasp. Clara had been inside Sophie's room, inside her house. Martha and I drove straight to the police station. This time, the officers took it seriously. They contacted Child Protective Services, and within hours, Sophie was placed in temporary custody for her own safety. Clara's name went straight onto a watch list. But none of that gave me peace. I knew Clara. She was too clever, too calculating to make a move that obvious, unless she wanted to send a message. That night, I sat at my kitchen table staring at the photo of Sophie, tears welling in my eyes. The thought of that innocent child in the hands of a woman capable of murder made my stomach turn. Martha placed a gentle hand on my shoulder. "You did the right thing, Lena. She won't get near Sophie again." I wanted to believe her, but deep down I knew Clara wouldn't stop, not until she had destroyed every trace of evidence, and me along with it. And as if the universe wanted to confirm my fear, my phone buzzed again, later that night. Unknown number. "You think you've won? You have no idea what I'm capable of." That was the moment I realized Clara wasn't just running from the truth anymore. She was hunting me, and this time, she wasn't coming alone. Sleep never came that night. I sat in the dark, the glow of my phone the only light in the room, reading that message again and again. "You think you've won?" Each word felt like a knife sliding deeper. I didn't reply. I just stared at the screen until it dimmed, afraid that even one wrong tap could draw her closer. At dawn, I drove to Martha's house. The streets were empty, washed pale by early sunlight. But every passing car made my heart jump. Martha opened the door before I could even knock. She looked as sleepless as I felt. "You got another message, didn't you?" she asked. I nodded, handing her the phone. She read silently, then sighed. "She's taunting you, but the police will trace that number." "I already tried," I said. "It's from a prepaid SIM, untraceable." Martha pressed her lips together. "Then we find her another way." We spent the morning talking to the detective assigned to the case, a tall man named Officer Daniel Reeves. He listened carefully, but his expression stayed cautious. "I'll flag the number," he said. "We'll monitor nearby cameras. But if she's moving constantly, it could take days." Days. The thought made my stomach tighten. Days were time Clara could use to disappear. Or worse, to plan. When we returned to my house, something felt wrong the moment I stepped inside. A faint scent of perfume lingered in the hallway. Clara's. I hadn't worn perfume in years. My hands started to tremble. "Martha," I whispered, "she's been here." We checked every room. Nothing looked disturbed. But that was almost worse. Everything was too perfect, like someone had walked through carefully, touching nothing but seeing everything. On the dining table lay a single object that hadn't been there before. An old photograph of Ethan holding baby Sophie. Across the bottom, in red ink, someone had written, "Family doesn't last forever." Martha's face turned white. "She broke in again, Lena. You can't stay here." I wanted to argue, but she was right. "I'll pack a bag," I said softly. "Just a few things." We decided I would stay with Martha until the police found her. As I stuffed clothes into a suitcase, I found myself pausing at Ethan's old photo on my dresser. His gentle smile, the kindness in his eyes. It gave me strength. "I'll protect your daughter," I whispered. "I promise." Before leaving, I picked up the mint green blanket. I didn't trust leaving it behind. It felt like Clara would destroy it if she could. So I folded it carefully and placed it inside my bag. We left the house in silence. At Martha's, the evening passed slowly. Officer Reeves called to say patrol cars would circle both neighborhoods. He advised us to keep the doors locked and not engage with anyone unknown. For a while it felt safe, until around 10 that night, when the power went out. The sudden darkness made both of us freeze. "Probably just the grid," Martha murmured, trying to sound calm, but I could hear the fear underneath. We found candles and lit them, the small flames trembling in the draft. Then, faintly, we heard it. Tires crunching on gravel outside. Headlights flared through the curtains. Martha peeked out and frowned. "That's not a police car." I crept beside her and looked. A white van sat idling across the street, its windows blacked out. After a moment, the engine cut off. The silence that followed was suffocating. "Should we call Reeves?" I whispered. Martha nodded, pulling out her phone. But there was no signal. "No service," she muttered. "It's like someone's jamming it." A metallic clang echoed from outside, the sound of a gate latch snapping open. My chest tightened. I blew out the candle instantly, plunging us back into darkness. Footsteps crunched on the gravel path leading up to the porch. "Stay quiet," Martha breathed. We moved to the hallway, hiding behind the door. Through the thin wood, we could hear breathing. Steady, deliberate. Then came a whisper so soft I almost thought I imagined it. "Lena, open the door. We just need to talk." It was Clara's voice. Martha grabbed my wrist. Her pulse was racing. "She found us," she mouthed. The doorknob rattled, once, twice. Then, silence. Seconds stretched like hours until we finally heard retreating footsteps. The van's engine roared back to life, and the sound faded into the distance. We didn't move for a long time. When we finally turned the lights back on, Martha's hands were shaking as she checked the lock. "She's testing us," she said, "seeing how far she can push before we break." I sank into a chair, clutching the blanket to my chest. "She wants me scared," I whispered. "But she doesn't understand. Fear isn't what's keeping me awake anymore. It's anger." Martha looked at me, startled by the firmness in my voice. "What are you thinking?" I met her eyes. If the police can't find her, maybe it's time we do. The next morning, I started retracing Clara's past myself, unaware that the trail would lead me to a secret place Ethan once visited, and to the one person who'd been hiding her truth all along. Morning light crept through Martha's curtains, pale and cold. Neither of us had truly slept. I sat at her kitchen table staring at the blanket folded beside my coffee mug. Its mint threads looked harmless, yet every time I touched it, memories of that night came rushing back. The voice at the door, the van, the silence afterward. "I can't wait for the police anymore," I said finally. "She's always one step ahead." Martha rubbed her temples. "You said Ethan mentioned some clinic before he died. Something about renovations." I nodded slowly. "Yes. He was volunteering at a small maternity clinic on the east side, helping with medical records. He said they needed better safety standards. That was right before the accident." We looked at each other. The same thought struck us both. "Lydia Torres," I whispered. If Clara stole a baby, she might have done it through that clinic. Within an hour, we were in Martha's car, heading east. The city thinned into rows of half-abandoned buildings and warehouses. Finally, we found it. A weather-beaten sign that still read, Rosefield Women's Clinic. The front doors were chained, the windows dust-covered. It looked like it hadn't seen life in years. Martha parked a block away. "Are you sure you want to do this?" "I need answers," I said, already stepping out. Ethan was trying to protect someone. Maybe that's why he died. The gate creaked as we pushed it open. Inside, the hallway smelled of mildew and paper rot. Faded posters of smiling mothers peeled from the walls. Dust motes danced in the weak sunlight that filtered through cracked glass. We found an office labeled Records. The door hung loosely on one hinge. Inside were rows of metal cabinets, some toppled, most rusted shut. I tugged one drawer open and coughed as a puff of dust rose. Folders lay inside, hundreds of them, yellowed and brittle. Births, adoptions, transfers. "Look at the dates," Martha said. 4 years ago, same period Lydia vanished. We searched for her name. It took nearly an hour before I found it, written in faded ink on a form labeled Patient Discharge Summary. My fingers shook as I read. Mother, Lydia Torres, infant, unnamed female, condition, healthy. Guardian release, pending signature. Below that line, in bold red stamp, file closed, transfer approved. The signature beneath wasn't Lydia's. It was Clara Morgan. My breath caught. "She forged the paperwork," I said. "This clinic helped her take Lydia's child." Martha's voice trembled. "If that's true, someone else here must have helped. Doctors, administrators. Maybe they were paid." We gathered every file with Clara's name, stacking them into a box. As I reached for the last folder, something else slid out. A small flash drive taped beneath the drawer. On it was written one word: Ethan. I stared at it, stunned. He was here. He left this. We rushed back to Martha's house and plugged the drive into her laptop. It contained a single video file, dated 2 days before Ethan's death. My hands trembled as I pressed play. The screen flickered to life, showing Ethan sitting in what looked like his office at the clinic. He looked exhausted but determined. "If you're watching this," he began. "Then I didn't make it. I found irregular adoption records. Babies listed as transferred, with forged signatures. One of the names is Lydia Torres. I think Clara's involved. She's been meeting someone named Hugh Morgan. I'm taking this to the board tomorrow. But if anything happens to me, make sure this gets to the police." The video ended there. I covered my mouth, a sob breaking free. Martha stared at the screen, speechless. "He knew," she whispered. "He tried to expose her, and she killed him for it." Tears streamed down my face, but inside me something hardened. "This changes everything. The police can't ignore this." Martha nodded. "We'll deliver it tonight. Straight to Officer Reeves." But as I copied the file onto a spare USB, my phone buzzed again. A text, unknown number. "Still chasing ghosts? You're late." A chill swept through me. I checked the timestamp. It had arrived 30 seconds ago. I looked toward the window. Across the street, a dark sedan idled with its lights off. Through the glare of the glass, I could swear I saw movement inside. "Martha," I whispered. "She found us again." Before she could respond, the laptop screen suddenly went black. The power flickered, then died. Outside, the car engine revved once, long and low, and then cut out. The room felt suffocatingly quiet. We were trapped in the dark, with proof that could ruin Clara forever. And she knew we had it. And as the silence deepened, a knock came at the door. 3 slow taps, followed by a voice I hadn't heard in years. "Mrs. Hale, it's Detective Reeves. Open up." But something in my gut told me that wasn't him. 3 slow knocks echoed through the small house. Each one felt heavier than the last. My fingers froze over the edge of the laptop as the glow from the candles flickered against the darkened windows. Outside, the wind howled softly, carrying the faint rattle of tree branches against the siding. Martha looked at me, her face pale. "You called him?" she whispered. I shook my head. "No, I didn't." A voice came again, deep and calm. "Mrs. Hale, it's Detective Reeves. I need to speak with you. Please open the door." Something about it sounded off. Too smooth, too measured. Reeves always had a rasp in his voice, the gravelly tone of a man who lived on too much coffee and too little sleep. This one was cleaner. Martha leaned close to the window and peered through the slit in the curtain. "I can't see his face," she whispered. "He's standing just out of the light." The hair on my arms prickled. I picked up my phone. Still no signal. "We can't open it," I said. "Not until we're sure." Another knock. Louder. "Mrs. Hale, I know you're inside. We need the flash drive you recovered. It's urgent." My heart dropped. He knew about the flash drive. Only 3 people knew. Me, Martha, and the real Detective Reeves. I whispered, "Back door." We tiptoed toward the kitchen, trying not to let the floorboards creak. The shadows seemed to stretch longer, thicker, until every corner felt alive. Then the handle of the front door rattled violently. Whoever was outside wasn't waiting for permission anymore. Martha grabbed the USB and slipped it into her pocket. "We have to go now." The kitchen window was small but big enough to climb through. Martha pulled it open, the frame groaning softly. I hoisted myself halfway through when a crash from the front hallway made my blood run cold. The door had splintered open. "Go!" I hissed. Martha pushed me the rest of the way. I tumbled into the damp grass outside. She followed seconds later, landing beside me with a gasp. We crouched low, hearts pounding, as footsteps moved inside the house. Through the broken door, we saw a figure silhouetted by flashlight glow. A tall man in a dark coat, his face obscured by a cap. He moved slowly, methodically, scanning the living room. When he turned slightly, the beam of light caught the edge of his jaw, and I saw a scar running from his ear to his chin. Not Reeves, Hugh Morgan. He was alive, standing in Martha's house, searching for the drive. Martha's hand clutched my arm so tightly it hurt. "He's with her," she mouthed. We crawled along the side of the house, trying not to make a sound. I could hear drawers opening, glass breaking, his footsteps coming closer to the kitchen. We slipped behind Martha's car and stayed perfectly still. My pulse thudded so loudly I was certain he'd hear it. After a moment, he stepped out onto the porch, scanning the yard. The beam of his flashlight swept across the garden, then paused, hovering dangerously close to our hiding spot. I held my breath until my chest ached. Finally, he turned back toward the house. A moment later, I heard him mutter into his phone. "Yeah, she's not here. I'll find her. Tell Clara to stay put until I bring it. Bring it. The flash drive. Proof of everything." When his car finally drove off, we didn't move for nearly 5 minutes. Only when the sound of the engine faded completely did Martha whisper, "He'll come back." I nodded, trembling. "Then we can't stay here. We left everything behind, laptop, clothes, even my handbag. All I kept was the blanket and the USB in Martha's pocket." We drove toward the outskirts of town, where old warehouses lined the river. Reeves had once mentioned an outpost near the docks, a temporary station for night patrols. If we could reach it, we'd be safe. The road was empty, silent except for the tires hissing on wet asphalt. My eyes darted to the mirror again and again, half expecting headlights to appear. Halfway across the bridge, Martha spoke softly. "He said he'd bring it. That means Clara's still nearby. She's waiting for him." I swallowed. "Then maybe we can turn the trap on them." Martha glanced at me. "You mean give them what they want?" "Not give," I said, gripping the blanket tighter. "Show. If they want the drive, we let them come for it, but on our terms." She hesitated, then nodded slowly. "You're thinking like Ethan now." Her words hit me harder than I expected. For the first time since he died, I felt a spark of him in me. His quiet courage, his need to finish what he started. We crossed the bridge and turned down an old service road toward the warehouses. The sky was bruised with clouds, the air heavy with rain. In the distance, a single red light blinked from a security tower. Safe or not, it was the only place left. As we pulled up beside the dark building, my phone suddenly lit up again. One new message, signal restored. Unknown number. "You're almost there." I stared at the screen, heart hammering, realizing the truth. Clara already knew where we were going, and before sunrise she would be waiting for us inside. Rain started as a mist, drifting across the river in thin gray sheets. Martha and I sat in the car outside the old warehouse. the wipers squeaking uselessly across the windshield. The place looked abandoned. Corrugated metal walls streaked with rust, windows cracked and fogged from the inside. A faint red beacon blinked from a tower above, each flash casting a weak pulse over the water. "Are you sure this is it?" Martha whispered. "It's the only patrol point Reeves mentioned," I said. "If he's on duty tonight, he'll be here." I wanted to believe that, but the silence around us made it hard. No police cruiser, no lights, no movement. Just the hiss of rain on metal. I pocketed the flash drive, wrapping it inside the mint green blanket for protection. "We'll go together," I said. "Stay behind me and keep your phone ready." We stepped out. The wind smelled of oil and river mud. Every footstep echoed on the wet concrete as we crossed the loading yard. A single door hung open, banging softly in the wind. The sound made me shiver. Inside, darkness swallowed everything, except for a strip of moonlight spilling through the broken roof. Dust motes floated like ghosts in the beam. Empty crates lay scattered, and a faint dripping echoed from somewhere deep inside. "Reeves," I called, my voice trembling. "It's Lena Hale. Are you here?" No answer. Only the hollow drip-drip of rain leaking through the roof. We moved deeper. Our footsteps stirred old paper and shards of glass. The silence pressed in until Martha whispered, "Maybe this isn't a station anymore." Before I could answer, a light flickered to our right, a flashlight beam, slicing briefly through the dark. My heart jumped. "Detective Reeves?" I called again. The beam froze, then lowered. A figure stepped into view, tall, uniformed. "Mrs. Hale?" the man said. The voice had the rasp I remembered. Relief flooded me. "Thank God," I breathed. "We thought—" Then another light clicked on behind him. A second figure emerged, this one smaller, moving with unsettling calm. The beam caught her face for an instant. Dark hair plastered by rain, eyes glinting like shards of glass. Clara. My blood turned to ice. Reeves spun, startled, but she was already moving. Something metallic flashed in her hand. The gunshot cracked through the warehouse like thunder. Reeves fell, clutching his shoulder, shouting for her to drop the weapon. Martha screamed. I grabbed her arm, dragging her behind a stack of crates, as bullets sparked against the concrete. Clara's voice rang out, echoing off the metal walls. "Give me the drive, Lena. This doesn't concern you anymore. It ends tonight." Rain pounded through the broken roof, cold drops splashing my hands. I pressed the flash drive deeper into the blanket, my mind racing. Reeves was still alive, crawling toward a beam of light near the door, his radio sputtering static. He managed to call for backup before another shot shattered the radio to pieces. "Stay here," I whispered to Martha. "No matter what happens." She grabbed my wrist. "You can't go out there. I have to end this." I stepped from behind the crates, clutching the blanket like a shield. "You want it?" I shouted. "Come and take it." Clara emerged from the shadows, her gun steady, her hair dripping rain. "You never should have looked for the truth," she hissed. "Ethan couldn't let it go either, and look where it got him." The rage that had been building inside me finally erupted. "You killed him because he was better than you'll ever be. And you stole a child to fix a life you ruined." Her eyes blazed. "You don't understand what I gave up for that child." For a heartbeat, she hesitated, just long enough for me to act. I hurled the blanket toward her. It caught on her arm, tangling around the gun. The shot went wild, the bullet sparking off a steel beam. I lunged, shoving her backward into a stack of crates. The weapon clattered to the floor. We struggled in the rain-slick dark. Her fingers clawed at me, her breath hot against my face. "You ruined everything," she screamed. Headlights flashed through the broken doorway. The sound of engines, tires screeching. Back up. Reeves's call had gone through after all. Clara's eyes widened. For the first time, I saw fear. She shoved me aside and bolted toward the back exit. Officers shouted for her to stop. But by the time they reached the door, she was gone, swallowed by the rain and night. I sank to the floor beside Reeves. His wound was bleeding but shallow. Martha rushed over, shaking, holding the recovered gun with a cloth. "She dropped this." she said. Reeves winced but managed a smile. "You did good, Mrs. Hale. We'll get her." Outside, the wail of sirens grew louder. I looked down at the soaked blanket lying beside me, the flash drive still hidden within its folds. For a moment, I thought of Ethan again. His courage, his quiet strength. Maybe, just maybe, justice would finally find her. But as the officers led us out into the rain, a single thought chilled me. Clara was still out there, and if she had escaped tonight, it wasn't because she was running. It was because she had something else planned. And the very next morning, when I saw the headlines splashed across the news, "Sophie Morgan missing from protective custody," I knew exactly what that plan was. The headline burned into my eyes even after I put the paper down. Sophie Morgan missing from protective custody. Each letter felt heavier than the one before it. I had been sitting in the hospital lobby all night while Detective Reeves recovered from surgery. When the nurse slid that newspaper across the counter, the world tilted again. Martha arrived a few minutes later, still in her rain-soaked coat. "Tell me it's not true," she whispered. I could barely speak. "They said the foster home woke to find the window open. No sign of a break-in. Sophie just vanished." Martha sank into the chair beside me, covering her mouth. "It's her. Clara took her." I nodded slowly. "She failed to destroy the evidence, so now she's taking what's left. Her prize." Detective Reeves joined us later that morning, pale but standing. His arm was bound in a sling. "We've issued an Amber Alert," he said. "Highway Patrol's been notified. We'll find her." But his eyes betrayed uncertainty. Clara had disappeared once before. She could do it again. He turned to me. "Mrs. Hale, we need that drive. The court will issue warrants once we verify what's on it." I handed it to him carefully. "There's a video. Ethan recorded everything." Reeves nodded. "Then it's the key. Once the techs extract it, we'll have enough to charge her and Hugh Morgan both." For the first time in days, I felt a flicker of hope. Until my phone vibrated. An unknown number. I hesitated, then answered. Static crackled, followed by a soft sound. A child's voice. "Grandma." My heart stopped. "Sophie?" "Sweetheart, where are you?" No answer. Only muffled sobs. Then a woman's voice, calm and deliberate. "Don't worry, Lena. She's safe with me now. We're a family again. Clara, please," I begged, gripping the phone so tightly it hurt. "You don't have to do this. Let her go. She's not even your daughter." A cold laugh echoed through the line. "She's all I have left. And after everything you've done, you'll never see her again." Then the line went dead. Martha's face drained of color. "Did she—" "Yes," I said, tears blurring my vision. "She has Sophie." Reeves immediately began tracing the call, issuing alerts to every surrounding county. "We'll find the signal. Don't lose hope." But the next hours dragged like years. We waited in the small conference room of the precinct while officers moved in and out. Maps, photos, and call logs scattered across the table. Every lead led to another dead end. By late afternoon, one technician approached, holding a printout. "We got a ping from the phone used for the call," he said. "It bounced off a tower near the old Rosefield bridge." Reeves looked at me. "That's close to the clinic where you found the video." I felt the blood drain from my face. "That's where it started, and where she'll finish it." We drove in convoy. 2 patrol cars, Reeves, Martha, and me. Rain started again, heavy and relentless. The bridge came into view. Narrow, half-closed for repairs, stretching over a gray-green current. On the far side stood a silver sedan parked at an angle. Headlights still on. "There," I whispered. Officers fanned out, weapons drawn. Reeves motioned for me to stay back, but I couldn't. I had to see Sophie. I had to bring her home. When we approached the car, the driver's door was open. Inside, a small blanket lay on the passenger seat. A pink one, the kind Sophie loved. Rain had soaked it through, but the back seat was empty. Then I noticed something on the dashboard. A cell phone. its screen cracked but glowing faintly. One message displayed across it in bold letters. "You took everything from me. Now watch how it feels." Reeves barked orders, sending teams to search the woods near the bridge. The river roared below, swollen from the storm. Every gust of wind sounded like a cry. Martha grabbed my hand. She wouldn't hurt Sophie. She whispered as if saying it could make it true. But deep down I wasn't sure. Clara had already crossed every line a human soul should. Hours passed before an officer called out from the embankment. We found tracks, 2 sets of footprints heading down toward the riverbank. Reeves sprinted toward them, flashlight cutting through the rain. I followed, my shoes sinking into the mud. The prints led to the edge of the bank, where the soil broke away sharply into the water. One small footprint ended right at the edge. Beside it, a deeper one, pressed hard as if from a struggle. A single child's shoe lay half buried in the mud, pink, with a daisy charm. I dropped to my knees, tears mixing with rain. "Sophie," Reeves knelt beside me. "We'll find her, Mrs. Hale. We're sending divers now. Don't give up." I wanted to believe him, but the river swallowed every sound, every prayer, leaving only the hiss of rain. Martha stood behind us, sobbing quietly into her hands. Lightning flashed, and for a heartbeat I thought I saw movement on the far side of the river, a shadow standing under the trees. Then it was gone, and as the thunder rolled across the bridge, I knew in my bones that Clara wasn't gone at all. She was watching us, waiting for the right moment to finish what she started. The rain didn't stop for 2 days. It felt like the sky itself was grieving. Divers worked around the clock, searching the river's murky depths, while floodlights cast pale halos across the water. I stood by the railing every hour, refusing to leave, even when the cold soaked through my coat. Martha begged me to rest. "Lena, please. You'll make yourself sick." "I can't," I said softly. "She's out there. I can feel it. And so is Sophie." Detective Reeves paced nearby, barking quiet orders into his radio. Every now and then he'd glance my way, his expression a mix of pity and determination. "We'll find them both," he promised, "one way or another." But as hours turned to another sleepless night, hope began to slip through my fingers like water. Around midnight, one of the divers surfaced, shouting for Reeves. They'd found something lodged against the rocks beneath the bridge. A car door, silver paint, same model as Clara's sedan. My heart nearly stopped. The car. They pulled the rest of it from the water with heavy cables. The sight made me nauseous. Shattered windows, twisted metal, mud dripping from every surface. Reeves's flashlight swept over the interior. Empty. No bodies, no child seat, nothing. Martha covered her mouth. "So she wasn't in it?" Reeves shook his head. "Could have rolled in after she left it. Or she wanted us to think she drowned." I stared at the broken reflection of the car in the water. "She wants us to stop looking," I whispered. "She wants us to believe it's over." Reeves frowned. "What makes you say that?" "Because Clara doesn't run," I said. "She hides in plain sight." He didn't argue. Instead, he ordered roadblocks set up across every exit from the county. But deep down, I knew Clara was already too clever for that. Later that morning, as the sun finally broke through the storm clouds, a patrolman approached with something wrapped in plastic. "Ma'am," he said carefully, "we found this about half a mile downstream." Inside the bag was a photograph, damp, edges torn. My breath caught. It was Sophie, sitting on my lap from last Christmas, both of us smiling. Scrawled across the photo in smeared red ink were 3 words. "You failed her." I dropped it as if it burned me. Reeves picked it up, his jaw tightening. "She's playing games." "It's not a game," I said bitterly. "It's punishment." Martha put her arm around me, but I could barely feel it. "Lena, you can't let her get inside your head." "She already is," I whispered. That afternoon, Reeves got a call from a gas station outside town. The clerk reported seeing a woman matching Clara's description, buying snacks and fuel, accompanied by a little girl in a pink raincoat, Sophie. We were in the car within minutes, speeding down the highway. Every second that passed felt stolen. The gas station sat at the edge of a forest road, surrounded by nothing but pine and fog. The clerk pointed toward the woods. She went that way. Said she was taking the shortcut to Maple Hollow. Reeves radioed backup, then turned to me. "Stay in the car, Lena. We'll search on foot." But I couldn't stay still. She's my granddaughter. "I'm coming." We followed the muddy trail into the woods. The trees loomed tall and wet, their branches whispering in the wind. Somewhere ahead I heard faint humming. A lullaby. My heart lurched. "It's her," I whispered. We crept closer, careful not to snap a twig. Through the trees, a small clearing opened near the riverbank, and there she was. Clara sat on a fallen log, her hair tangled, her clothes drenched, cradling Sophie in her arms. The little girl was wrapped in my mint-green blanket, her eyes half closed. Clara rocked her gently, singing under her breath. "Clara," I called softly, stepping forward. She turned slowly, her expression blank, almost peaceful. "You came. Please," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "You don't have to do this. Just let Sophie go," she smiled faintly. "You think I'd ever hurt her? She's all I ever wanted, the only piece of love I could still control." Tears blurred my vision. "You took everything, Clara. My son, that poor girl Lydia, now Sophie. Please don't make this worse." Her grip on Sophie tightened. "You think you're the hero in this story, don't you, Lena? But Ethan lied too. He knew what I'd done. He said he'd forgive me, but he recorded that video instead. He betrayed me first, then hate me," I said quietly. "Not her." For a long moment, Clara's face wavered between rage and heartbreak. Then from behind us, Reeves shouted, "Put the child down!" Clara flinched, clutching Sophie tighter. The little girl stirred, whimpering. Reeves stepped forward. "It's over, Clara. There's nowhere left to go." Rain started again, soft and steady. Clara looked down at Sophie, then back at me. "Maybe there's one place left," she whispered. Before anyone could react, she turned and ran toward the riverbank. And as she disappeared into the fog with Sophie in her arms, I realized with dawning horror that Clara wasn't trying to escape this time. She was trying to end it forever. The rain came down harder, turning the ground beneath us into slick mud as we ran. The river roared somewhere ahead, loud, fast, alive. I could barely see through the fog, but I followed the sound of Clara's footsteps. The faint cry of my granddaughter carried between gusts of wind. "Clara!" I shouted. "Stop!" Branches clawed at my coat. Reeves called behind me. "Lena, stay back." But I didn't slow down. I couldn't. Every heartbeat pushed me forward. I broke through a wall of wet brush and froze. There she was, standing near the water's edge, soaked through, clutching Sophie close. The river boiled just a few feet away, the current wild from days of rain. Mist swirled around her like smoke. "Don't come any closer," she warned, her voice breaking. I lifted my hands slowly. "I'm not here to take her from you. I just want to talk." Her eyes were wild but tired, like she'd run out of lies to tell herself. "You don't understand," she said. "I tried to be everything Ethan wanted, everything the world expected, but it was never enough. When Lydia disappeared, I thought, if I could give him that child, he'd finally love me again." The words hit me like stones. You didn't have to fix love, Clara. You only had to be honest. She laughed, short and bitter. "Honest? Honesty destroyed me. He was going to turn me in, so I made sure he couldn't." The truth hung between us, thick, suffocating. Behind me, Reeves and 2 officers appeared through the fog, weapons lowered but ready. "Clara," Reeves called gently. "You can stop running. Sophie needs to be safe. You both do." Sophie stirred in her arms, her tiny voice trembling. "Mommy, I'm cold." For the first time, Clara's composure cracked. Her grip loosened. Her shoulders shook. She looked down at Sophie with eyes full of confusion and grief. "I wanted to protect you," she whispered. "I wanted to save you from me." I took one step closer. "Then do that now," I said softly. "Save her. Let her go." For a moment, she didn't move. The wind tore at our clothes, rain stinging our faces. Then, slowly, she knelt and set Sophie on the ground, wrapping the mint green blanket around her shoulders. The sight made my knees weaken with relief. I rushed forward, scooping the little girl into my arms. She buried her face in my neck, trembling. "Grandma," she whispered. I was so scared. "I know, sweetheart. It's over now," I whispered back, though a part of me wasn't sure it was. Clara stood still, staring at us. "You think she'll forget? You think she won't grow up hating me?" Reeves stepped closer, hand outstretched. "We'll make sure she gets help, Clara. Everyone can start again." For a heartbeat, I thought she might surrender. Then her gaze shifted to the horizon, to the gray light breaking through the clouds. "Start again," she murmured almost to herself. "Maybe that's all any of us wanted." Without another word, she turned away, walking slowly along the riverbank until the fog swallowed her figure. Reeves shouted her name, officers scattering along the shore, but the mist thickened, and the sound of the current drowned everything else. I clutched Sophie tighter, afraid to blink in case she vanished too. Minutes later, the officers regrouped, soaked and empty-handed. "No sign of her," one said. "No tracks past the bend. It's like she disappeared." Reeves looked at me, weary but calm. "We'll keep searching. If she's still out there, she won't get far." I nodded, though part of me knew Clara was like the river. She could flow anywhere, unseen, relentless. They took us back to the station for statements. Sophie stayed wrapped in her blanket, half asleep against my shoulder. When we reached the car, Reeves paused beside me. "Mrs. Hale," he said quietly. "What you did tonight saved that child's life." I met his eyes. "No, Ethan did. He left the truth behind. I just followed it." He nodded and walked away. Back home, the house felt different. Quiet, but not empty. Sophie slept on the couch while I sat beside her, the blanket draped over both of us. Outside, dawn crept across the horizon, turning the world silver. For the first time in months, I felt a fragile peace, yet somewhere deep inside, I could still hear the river and the faint echo of Clara's voice in the mist. And just as I began to close my eyes, my phone buzzed on the table. One new message, no number attached. "Tell Sophie I'll come back for her soon." Morning light spilled across the living room floor, pale and tired after a night of rain. Sophie still slept on the couch, the mint green blanket pulled to her chin. I sat nearby with a cup of untouched tea, watching her chest rise and fall. Every breath felt like proof that she was still mine to protect. But that message on my phone lay like a weight in my lap. "Tell Sophie I'll come back for her soon." No number, no trace. Just those words glowing on the screen. I'd shown it to Detective Reeves an hour ago. He'd frowned, rubbing his temples. "It was sent through a masked server. We'll trace what we can, but it looks like she's using stolen towers. She planned this." I didn't need him to tell me that. Clara had always been meticulous. She anticipated every move before we made it. Even now, after everything, she was still finding ways to haunt us. Martha arrived with a grocery bag and a nervous smile. "I brought breakfast. Thought something normal might help." "Normal," I echoed, managing a small laugh. "I barely remember what that feels like." She placed a hand on my shoulder. "She's gone, Lena. The police are searching every mile of that river. If she's alive, she can't hide forever." I wanted to believe that. I wanted to imagine Clara somewhere far away, too tired to fight. But the message said otherwise. When Sophie woke, she blinked at us sleepily. "Is Mommy mad at me?" The question cut deeper than any wound. "No, sweetheart," I said softly. "She's just very sick right now. But you're safe," she nodded, trusting me in a way that made my chest ache. Children have a way of believing what they need to hear. I only hoped the lie would protect her long enough for it to become true. Later that day, Reeves stopped by again, dressed in plain clothes instead of his uniform. "I wanted to update you," he said, setting his hat on the table. We found evidence near the riverbank, torn fabric from a coat and footprints heading east toward the quarry road. No sign of a body. "So she survived," I whispered. He hesitated. "We can't confirm that yet, but we're treating her as at large. I'll have officers patrolling this neighborhood 24 hours for the next few weeks." Martha poured him coffee, but he didn't drink it. He looked tired, older somehow. "Mrs. Hale," he added, "I know this isn't over for you. If she contacts you again, call me directly. No hesitation." I promised I would. After he left, the house felt strangely hollow again, like the air had changed. Sophie colored quietly at the kitchen table while Martha tidied dishes. I stared, out the window toward the street, half expecting to see a flash of dark hair behind the trees. Instead, a white envelope rested on the porch railing. My stomach dropped. I hadn't heard a car, hadn't heard a step. I stepped outside, heart pounding. The envelope was damp from rain but neatly sealed. No name, just a single pressed flower taped to the front. A daisy. Sophie's favorite. Inside was a single sheet of paper written in an unfamiliar, careful hand. "You don't need to be afraid. Sophie belongs where she feels loved. If you can promise that, you'll never have to see me again." No signature, but I knew who it was from. I read it twice, then folded it with shaking fingers. Martha watched from the doorway. "Another letter?" I nodded. She was here. Just now. We called Reeves immediately. He arrived within minutes, scanning the yard. Tire marks streaked the edge of the drive. Fresh. "She's taunting you," he said. "She wants to make sure you know she can still reach you." Sophie peeked from behind the curtain. "Grandma, who's outside?" "No one, honey," I said gently. "Just friends making sure we're safe." When she returned to her drawing, Reeves lowered his voice. "We'll increase surveillance, but, Lena, if she meant what that letter said, she might not come back to hurt you. She might just want you to know she's watching." That thought chilled me even more. A ghost doesn't have to appear to haunt you. Sometimes it just lingers in the quiet spaces. That night, I couldn't bring myself to sleep. I sat by the window, the blanket draped around me, listening to the hum of the streetlights. Somewhere, in the distance, a car engine started, idled for a few seconds, then drove away. I told myself it was coincidence. But when I looked down at the blanket in my lap, I saw something I hadn't noticed before. Tiny new stitches along one edge, thread slightly darker than the rest. Someone had repaired it recently, and as I traced those fresh stitches with trembling fingers, I realized they weren't repairs at all. They were initials sewn into the fabric. C. The discovery of those initials kept me awake the entire night. CM sewn neatly in the corner of the blanket. The thread was darker than the rest, new, deliberate. My fingers trembled as I touched it. Clara's mark, woven into the one thing I thought she hadn't touched since that night by the river. Morning light crept through the blinds, pale and cold. Martha found me still sitting in the armchair, the blanket folded in my lap like a question I couldn't answer. "Did you sleep at all?" she asked. I shook my head. "She's been here again," Look." Martha leaned closer, gasping softly. "She signed it. My God, Lena. She wants you to know she was close enough to touch this." "That's the point," I said. "To remind me she can reach us whenever she wants." We took the blanket straight to Detective Reeves. He examined it under a magnifying light at the precinct, careful not to disturb the new thread. "Different fiber," he murmured. "This stitching is synthetic, not cotton. Probably sewn within the last week. Whoever did it wanted to leave a message, not repair a tear. She's playing with us," I said quietly. He nodded grimly. "Or she's trying to tell you something else. Sometimes predators need acknowledgement. They mark their territory." That word, predator, made my stomach turn. Reeves arranged for a forensic sweep of the house. Officers dusted the windows, the porch railing, the locks. Nothing. Not a single fingerprint. "She's careful," Reeves said. "Too careful. But we'll keep watching." Back home, Martha tried to distract Sophie with cartoons and pancakes, but I could see the tension in her shoulders. Every knock at the door made us flinch. The house had become a waiting room for the next shadow. By afternoon, Sophie padded into the living room, holding her crayons. "Grandma, can I draw on the blanket?" she asked. "Not that one, sweetheart," I said quickly, my voice sharper than I meant. She blinked, startled. I forced a smile. "It's just old and fragile. Here, use paper." She nodded and settled on the rug. Her little hands moved across the page in soft strokes of pink and blue. When she finished, she held it up proudly. "It's you, me, and Mommy," she said. "See? We're by the river." The air left my lungs. "Who told you about the river, darling?" Sophie shrugged. "Mommy did. In my dream." Martha and I exchanged a glance. I tried to sound calm. What did she say? "She said the water is calm now." Sophie answered simply, "And that she's sorry she scared us." I forced a smile, but inside dread pooled like ice. Dreams can be coincidences, but timing is never that kind with us. That evening, Reeves called again. "We traced the thread," he said. "A small fabric shop 2 towns over sold that exact color and texture to one customer last week. Paid in cash, no name. But the clerk remembers a woman with dark hair and a limp on her right leg. Clara had injured that leg during the warehouse fight. She's alive," I whispered. "Yes," Reeves said. "And she's nearby. We'll find her, I promise." After the call, I walked out to the porch alone. The sky was fading into that deep violet between dusk and night. Somewhere, a dog barked, and the wind carried the smell of rain again. I gripped the blanket tightly, tracing the initials over and over. Maybe she wasn't just marking territory. Maybe she wanted me to understand something else. CM, Clara Morgan. Or could it mean something more? The stitches curved slightly, almost forming a second shape beneath, as if she'd hidden another line of thread inside. I pulled at one corner carefully. A tiny folded scrap of paper slipped out from under the seam. My heart stuttered. Unfolding it revealed 3 words in faint pencil. "Look beneath Rosefield. Rosefield. The old clinic. The place where Ethan's file had been found." I felt dizzy. She'd gone back there. Why? To destroy what was left? Or to leave something behind? Martha came to the doorway. "Everything okay?" I handed her the note. "She's leading us somewhere." "Then it's a trap," she said immediately. "Maybe," I admitted. "But it's also the only way to end this." She sighed, knowing I'd already made up my mind. "Then I'm coming with you." The wind picked up, scattering leaves across the porch. I looked out into the dimming street, a strange calm settling over me. Clara wanted me to find whatever was buried beneath that clinic. Maybe it was proof of her guilt. Maybe it was the truth she thought would free her. Either way, it had to end where it began. At dawn, we would drive back to Rosefield. But as I folded the blanket one last time, I caught a faint smell clinging to the new stitches. Damp earth and something chemical, like soil freshly turned. Whatever waited beneath that place was no secret. It was a grave. We left before sunrise. The road to Rosefield wound through mist-soaked pines. The sky still bruised from night. Martha sat beside me, clutching a thermos that had long gone cold. Neither of us spoke much. Words felt too fragile for what waited ahead. When the old clinic came into view, it looked smaller than I remembered. Its windows boarded, its paint peeled into ghostly strips. The for sale sign leaned crooked in the overgrown grass. The last time I'd stood here, I'd found Ethan's recording. Now Clara wanted me to come back. Reeves's patrol car was already parked near the gate. He stepped out, nodding as we approached. "You sure about this, Mrs. Hale? We could sweep the place first." "I need to see it myself," I said. "She left the message for me." He sighed, then signaled 2 officers to follow at a distance. The gate groaned open, and we stepped onto the cracked path leading to the rear of the property. The rain had softened the earth, filling the air with the smell of rust and moss. We circled around to the basement entrance. A rusted storm door half buried in weeds. Reeves pried it open with a crowbar, revealing a narrow stairwell descending into darkness. A faint drip echoed from below. I switched on my flashlight. "If she wanted me to look beneath Rosefield," I whispered, "this is where it starts." The basement was cold and damp, the walls mottled with mold. Rusted medical tables lined one side, their wheels frozen in place. Faded charts curled on the walls. The deeper we went, the stronger the smell of wet soil became. Martha stayed close, her breath quick. "This place feels wrong." "It always did," I murmured. At the far end of the room, a section of the concrete floor had cracked away, revealing a patch of disturbed dirt, fresh. Someone had been here recently. Reeves crouched beside it, shining his flashlight. "There's something buried." He motioned for an officer to bring tools. As they began to dig carefully, I noticed faint chalk markings on the nearby wall. Letters and numbers scrawled hastily. C102, and beneath it, a symbol that looked like a spiral. C102. I repeated. "That's an old patient file code." Reeves glanced up. "Ethan mentioned those in his notes, didn't he?" "The missing children," I nodded slowly. Each child's file was labeled with a code. C-series were the earliest cases, the ones that vanished before the clinic was shut down. The digging stopped with a dull thud. The officer reached down, lifting something from the soil. A small metal box, no bigger than a book. Mud clung to its edges. Reeves wiped it clean, revealing a faded hospital emblem on the lid. He looked at me. "You want to do the honors?" My hands shook as I flipped the latch. Inside were stacks of photographs, old and curled from moisture. Children. Faces I didn't recognize. Each photo had a number scrawled across the back. C101, C102, C103. And tucked between them, a single envelope marked EHI felt the breath catch in my throat. "Ethan Hale," I whispered. Inside the envelope was a letter, the handwriting unmistakable. Ethan's. If you're reading this, then Clara found a way to hide the truth longer than I expected. The children weren't random. They were test subjects for something far darker. Adoption laundering under the guise of therapy. I have evidence stored in multiple places, but Rosefield is the root. Don't trust anyone who says they can fix this quietly. Expose it, no matter the cost. Tears blurred the words. My son had known he might never leave this place alive. Reeves read over my shoulder, jaw tight. "We can use this. This is enough to bring the entire operation down." Martha touched my arm gently. "Lena, look. On the underside of the box lid, Faint etching spelled 3 initials. CMH. Reeves frowned. Clara Morgan Hale. She added your family name. A chill ran through me. She'd bound herself to us. Through marriage. Through deceit. Through memory. And even now, through whatever secret she buried. Suddenly, a metallic clang echoed from above. Distant but sharp. We froze. Another sound followed. Footsteps across the floorboards overhead. Slow. Deliberate. Reeves signaled the officers silently, drawing his weapon. Someone's upstairs. I gripped the flashlight tighter. It's her. The steps moved toward the stairwell, then stopped. Silence thick enough to hear our own hearts beating. Reeves whispered, "Stay behind me." He climbed halfway up the stairs, beam of light sweeping across the landing. Nothing. The door at the top stood open, rain dripping through. A cold draft rolled down, carrying a faint smell of smoke. "Clear!" one officer called softly. But I knew better. I could feel her presence, like a shadow just beyond the light. Reeves descended again, face grim. She's toying with us. She wanted us to find this, I said. But not to stop here. He nodded toward the box. We'll take it to evidence. I'll post a guard outside this place tonight. As we turned to leave, I glanced one last time at the cracked floor, at the dark patch of earth where the box had been. A thought stirred, unwelcome but certain. Clara wasn't just hiding her crimes. She was guiding me toward something deeper, something Ethan hadn't lived to uncover. And as I stepped into the dawn light, I noticed muddy footprints beside our car. Small, fresh, leading away from the clinic toward the woods. One adult, one child. The woods behind Rosefield were heavy with fog, every branch slick from the night's rain. Reeves moved first, flashlight cutting a narrow path through the trees, while 2 officers followed close behind. I trailed him, clutching the blanket against my chest like a shield. The footprints were still clear, one large, one small, pressed into the wet earth. "She's not alone," Reeves muttered. "Either she found another child or—" "It's Sophie," I said quietly. "She's come for her." He turned, startled. "But we checked your house." "She's clever," I interrupted. "If she wanted to draw us here, she'd make sure we left Sophie behind long enough for her to slip in." He cursed under his breath and radioed for units to check my address. Static crackled, then a voice came back. "House empty, window open, child missing." The forest seemed to close around me. Every nightmare I'd pushed away came rushing back. Reeves squeezed my shoulder. "We'll find her." We followed the trail deeper until it reached a clearing near the river, an echo of that first night, only quieter, colder. The mist hung low, and through it we saw them. Clara stood by the water's edge, a small figure beside her, Sophie, wrapped in the same mint-green blanket. The child's face was pale but calm, her hand resting in Clara's. "Stay back," Reeves warned softly. I stepped forward before he could stop me. "Clara!" She turned slowly, eyes hollow but dry. "You came," she said, almost with relief. "I didn't want to leave without saying goodbye." "Let her go," I pleaded. "This isn't how love works. You can't hold on by taking." Clara looked down at Sophie. "She doesn't fear me anymore, Lena. Do you, sweetheart?" Sophie shook her head faintly, confused and sleepy. "Mommy said we were just visiting the river again." Tears stung my eyes. "She needs to go home." Clara's voice softened. Home, such a fragile word. I thought I'd found mine once, with Ethan. But every truth I told him broke something inside him. When he left that tape, he thought he was saving the world. He didn't know he was ending mine. "You can still save something," I said. "Not yourself, maybe, but her." For a long moment, she didn't answer. The wind lifted her hair, revealing the faint scar along her jaw, the one from that night in the warehouse. She looked exhausted, a shadow of the woman who once thought she could control fate. Reeves whispered to his team, motioning them to circle behind. But Clara noticed. "No tricks," she said sharply, pulling Sophie closer. "If anyone moves, she goes with me." I raised both hands. "Clara, look at me. You've spent years running from what you did, but the truth never stopped chasing you. This is your chance to stop it peacefully, for her sake." Her lips trembled. "Do you think they'll forgive me?" "Any of them?" "Maybe not," I said honestly. "But forgiveness isn't what saves us. Acceptance does." Something broke inside her then. Her shoulders sagged, her hand loosened. Sophie stepped hesitantly toward me. I reached out, and when her small fingers touched mine, the world seemed to exhale. Clara watched us for a long, silent moment. Then she nodded almost to herself. "You were right, Lena. It ends here." Reeves moved quickly, taking Sophie into his arms and guiding her back toward Martha, who had appeared at the clearing's edge. I turned to Clara, but she had knelt beside the river, staring at her reflection, as if searching for the woman she used to be. "You don't have to disappear," I said. "There's still a way back." She shook her head slowly. "I already have." When the officers reached her, she didn't resist. She simply whispered, "Tell her I loved her, even when I couldn't show it." They led her away as dawn broke through the fog. Light spilled across the water, turning the river silver. Sophie ran into my arms, burying her face against my shoulder. "It's over now," I murmured, though I wasn't sure who I was trying to convince, her or myself. Reeves handed me the metal box. "Everything we need is in here," he said. "Do you want to be the one to deliver it?" I nodded. "Ethan deserves that." We drove back in silence, the rising sun washing the world clean. Yet behind that warmth lingered a chill I couldn't shake. The feeling that endings aren't always final. Some stories echo long after the last line. And when we reached the station, Reeves handed me his phone. A new message had arrived moments ago, from a number marked unknown. It contained only one line. "Thank you for keeping her safe. See." A week later, the rain finally stopped. The air carried that fragile stillness that comes only after long storms, as if the world itself had been wrung clean. I sat on the back porch with Sophie curled beside me, her head resting on my shoulder, watching the sky change from gray to gold. The case at Rosefield had spread across every news channel. Headlines spoke of illegal adoptions, falsified deaths, and buried records. Ethan's video and the files from the metal box had become the cornerstone of the investigation. Reeves told me yesterday that federal agents were reopening every missing child report connected to the clinic. Dozens of families might finally know what happened to their children. It should have felt like victory. Instead, it felt like breathing after being underwater too long. Painful and necessary. Sophie pointed at the clouds. "Grandma, do you think Mommy's up there?" I swallowed hard. "Maybe she's somewhere quieter," I said. "Somewhere she can rest." She smiled sleepily. "Then I'll wave so she sees me." Watching her tiny hand against the sky, I thought of all the things Clara had broken trying to keep love from slipping away. And of all the things Ethan had risked to bring truth into the light. They were both gone now, bound together in a tragedy neither of them wanted but both had shaped. That night, Martha joined us for dinner. She lit a candle for Ethan and another for Clara, though she never said her name aloud. "Closure isn't about forgetting," she said quietly. "It's about not letting the ghosts decide what comes next." Later, when Sophie was asleep, Reeves stopped by one last time. His arm was still in a sling, but he looked lighter somehow. "We got confirmation," he said. "They found Clara's prints on the Rosefield evidence, but none since. She's officially in custody awaiting transfer to state facilities. She isn't running anymore." I nodded slowly. "Maybe she finally found peace." He hesitated, then added, "Before they moved her, she asked for one letter to be delivered to you. It cleared inspection this morning." He handed me a sealed envelope with my name written in Clara's looping hand. For a long time, I couldn't bring myself to open it. When I finally did, the scent of river water and mint drifted out faintly, as if she'd written it that night by the water. Lena, you were right. Love isn't about keeping. It's about letting go. I tried to shape the world around my grief, and only created more of it. Tell Sophie I dream of her laughter, not her forgiveness. Tell her I loved Ethan in ways I never knew how to explain. And tell yourself that the truth you carried set us all free. Clara M. The words blurred as tears fell onto the page. Reeves placed a hand on my shoulder. Sometimes that's the closest thing to redemption people get. He left soon after, and the house grew quiet again. I sat by Sophie's bed, the candlelight flickering against the walls. She murmured in her sleep, a faint smile on her lips. I brushed a strand of hair from her face and whispered, "You're safe now, my darling. You're home." In the following weeks, life settled into something resembling normal. The mornings were filled with the smell of toast and school chatter. The evenings with soft laughter and cartoons. The mint green blanket, now cleaned and folded, rested at the foot of Sophie's bed. A reminder, not of fear, but of survival. Sometimes, when the wind passed through the trees just right, I could swear I heard Ethan's voice. Steady, reassuring, telling me that truth always finds its way out of the dark. And sometimes, just before dawn, the mist along the river shimmered faintly, as though someone unseen was keeping watch. One evening, Sophie tugged my sleeve. "Grandma, can we go to the river tomorrow? I want to throw flowers for Mommy and Daddy." I smiled. "Yes, sweetheart. We'll do that." She grinned, satisfied, and ran off to her room. I followed her with my eyes, the weight in my chest finally easing. The past had taken enough. It was time to let the living breathe again. I stepped outside, the sky painted in shades of violet and amber. The air smelled of wet soil and wild mint. For a moment I thought I saw a figure by the bend of the river. Tall, still watching. But when I blinked, it was gone, leaving only ripples and light. I closed my eyes and whispered to the wind, "It's over." The world answered with silence. Not empty, but full. The kind that comes after truth, after loss, after love has done all it can. The end in the end. Truth doesn't just set you free. It shows you who you really are. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Please like and subscribe to my channel, and hit the bell icon to get updates whenever I upload a new story.